Hey, how you doing? This week's video is going to be a follow-on from last week's. So last week's video was about how to prep a sandbox. Essentially, a sandbox isn't scary. There'll be a link to that up here somewhere. So if you haven't seen that, it might be worth looking at that one first. This is an example of how this works in play and how it develops story, and you don't have to worry about plots. And I think that's one of the big things when people first start thinking about running a plotless campaign is, will it be not driven? And I tend to find the absolute opposite. So let's jump back to the screen. Okay, so in last week's video I talked about kind of location, situation, motivation and observation. I'm going to keep on referring back to them as we tell the story of the Kobold's escape. So I ran a sandbox open table campaign. Now, I actually ran it in two locations. One was online on a Discord server with loads of people from throughout Europe, amazing players, and the other one was on Mondays in a cafe locally. And it was the same campaign in the same world running at the same time. We were using one-on-one time, and the two groups were interacting with each other or hearing rumors of the other one, which is kind of cool. And what I did with most of the players in the cafe had never played D&D before. They had no point of reference. They just picked up old swords and started playing because it's really easy for that. So I needed something to kind of like keep the information in place. So I created like a Google site, and this is it. So there's an area for the world, the players, and then there's the kind of campaign diaries. This artwork, one of our players did that for their character, like ridiculously cool. Look at that. So I had a bit where we had information on the players and who they were. And what I also did, which was kind of cool, was I created a Google Doc so that originally it was done in Discord, and I probably would do it in Discord again, where every week somebody would do a summary of the game. And I'll go into that at the very end. So what we've got is, I'm going to tell you quickly the story of the Kobold's escape. So the very first session that we ran was, with first session with players, you can have a bit of direction. So I gave them about 3 or 4 different rumors, and they got to pick up the one that they wanted, and they followed that. And the one they followed was there was sheep going missing near this old tavern outside town, and they did some investigation, which led them, long story short, and these sheep were being drained of blood, which led them to this old abandoned tavern. And again, these are just kind of like dice and logo maps that I threw in. So they came into the tavern. They found Sturges there, which seemed to be the culprit. So when they found the Sturges, they beat them, and then they went upstairs through these stairs up here to the top. And what I did is I took that little bit of dust. If we zoom in, can we zoom in? No, it doesn't work that way. But I took a little bit of dust in and around there to be with spider's web. So there was a spider up there. Nothing big. Again, second combat, they eventually killed the spider, and there was a web in the corner with something in it. It was a body in it, or there was 2 bodies in it. They asked, were they alive? And I said, one was obviously dead. And they said, was the other one alive? We rolled a dice at the table. Turned out it was alive. So they opened it up, and I just said it was a kobold because I knew there were kobolds in here. So it was a kobold, and one of the group just desperately wanted to kill it. This character called Tag, who was a cleric, he wanted to kill this thing, and Yara, who was another cleric, wanted not to. So she took this thing out and then named it and called it Barry. And once you name things are like they become different. So she took Barry back, hid Barry over here. Tag tried to kill him again when they went across. Long story short, they went into this tavern, and all the kobolds were in and around there. Using Barry and throwing rations, they managed to make friends with them, which was cool. They brought somebody back. They were happy. They were very, like, it could have went either way. It was the players' interaction that actually did it. At which stage Tag had come out. So they were told not to go into this room because there was giant rats. One of the other players went through this door and got caught with the giant rats. So the party ran into here to fight them. I completely forgot, but that player actually jumped out the window. And I was tell you how I know these details so well. So essentially they were all in here. What happened next was Tag came in, walked into this room, saw them all out of the room, shouted, "They're attacking me," and immediately started shooting this family of kobolds. It was brutal. And basically the rest of the party came out and saw this happening. They joined in. They slaughtered this entire family of kobolds. Yara protected Barry, and then they tried to kill Barry, or Tag tried to kill Barry. They shot one of his. Long story short, Yara gave him all their gold. He escaped and swore revenge. Now, while they were there, they also said, "Is there anything down the well?" There was nothing down the well. I said it sounds fairly hollow and dark, and they had no ropes. So I knew at one point they're going to want to come back to that. Now, where does this tie into what we did beforehand? Location was literally the map. The situation was the sheep were going missing, which was the what they called the bloodsucky. I've forgotten the name of them. It will come back to me in a minute. Sturges. So, which was a Sturges. The group, and again, with this campaign setting, I was planning on running Keep or a version of Keep near there. These kobolds had left the kobolds there and come here because life was really tough, and they were just looking for a place to live. They weren't particularly evil, weren't particularly good. They just wanted a place to live, and when Barry got brought back, they were happy. So that was their motivation. They were hungry. They wanted a place to live. They don't particularly want to fight because they didn't particularly want to die. So we had a situation and a motivation for them. So I knew exactly how they were going to behave. Like Barry wasn't in existence at the start of the game. He wasn't even a consideration. But it happened through roles in the game. And because I knew motivation, I didn't have to really improvise anything. I knew how things would happen because it just seemed natural. Now, the observation thing. This is kind of like the key to what made this happen. Because of everything, we needed a name for the tavern. The tavern became the Kobold's Escape, which is really, really cool. Also, because of Yara's attachment to Barry, Barry now became this renegade who was out to kill Tag. Tag never played in another game again, which was unfortunate, because otherwise Barry would have been back. But everybody pictured Barry off in the woods, doing this kind of kickboxer-esque fighting, getting in shape. And it ended up, again, when they met him later on, they rolled a random encounter. He wasn't there, but it was kobolds, so I threw him in. He now had a gang of kobolds with him. There was a druid in the forest that was linked to another session. He's been training with him. Barry could now do little bits of magic. And all of that happened completely from a random dice roll of saying, was this thing alive? And one of the players attaching a name to it. Barry then would help them at any point that they really needed it. And there was a relationship formed between Yara, which was Bruce's character, and Barry. None of that was prepped. None of that was thought about, was a preset line in a module. None of that at all. And it didn't need to be, because we had a location, we had a situation, and I let the dice decide the rest. And once we know motivation, you don't have to overly prep. I could not have written it. I couldn't have made anything better. But with minimum prep, and this was really minimum prep for this area, because I never knew where they were going to go. So I just had rough ideas and a couple of sketches. With minimum prep, each session, if you are watching the players, listening to what they're interested in, getting them involved, it becomes, the story happens, and it's the story not that you created and not that they created, but you both created together. And it's so much better. And I want to show you something quickly here as well. If we look here, we have story here. What I did is I created a Google Doc, and the idea was, and I never did it, but was to create a book at the end of the campaign. And a book would have been the entire campaign diaries. I gave everybody 1 XP per session. I never told them at the start I was going to give them an XP, and you didn't need many XP in order to level up. So I never told them at the start that I was going to give them an XP to write the synopsis. The person who played Yara, Ruth, she wrote the first one, and it was amazing. And I'll give you an idea. This is the first one. This was the characters that were playing, and it was written from their perspective. It got given a nice name, and it set the tone for the rest of the campaign. The next one, each of them was almost like an episode. Toss the dwarf down the well was the next one. Again, this is the kind of cool thing. What we did is we went back, and so I'll give you an idea. Towards the end, while Barry made escape, one of his kin managed to escape the tavern and ran, only to be struck down by an arrow back. With that, Barry ran for his life and vowed revenge on the one named Tag, who had taken everything from him. Yara returned to the tavern to find Tag unconscious, tended everybody else. The group looted the killing field that was the tavern and returned to collect their fee for the grateful owner. It became almost like a short story, and that set the tone for the next one, which was, again, toss the dwarf down the well. There was nothing down the well, but I knew from the way that they reacted to the well and they went, is there anything down there? That it should be. So again, I just grabbed another Dyson's map, came up with a few ideas, and this is where they discovered the giant badger called Pebbles, which they befriended. But again, these bits of stories, if you're listening to players, they'll make them for you. And when they make them for you, this world becomes so much more real. So this is hopefully an okay description of how, with minimal prep, if you know the location, the situation, and the motivation, and you watch your players through observation, your story will develop with very little work, far less than having to read a big module and then try and understand the motivations from other people that are written over multiple pages. A line for each, or a few words for each, is enough for you in your referee or GM's brain to pick up, carry, and between you and your players, come together and create this kind of amazingly cool story. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'm not going to do huge amounts of campaign stories, but I just thought that would be a really good way to kind of link to the last video and give an actual real world example of how it works. I'm getting close to the idea of maybe starting another one of these campaigns and running it on the server. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. I don't know. But I'm thinking about it, and if I do, we might stream it. All right. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.